any questions during the webinar, please type them in the question box below. We will bring them up during the presentation, or we will take that towards the end of the presentation. Now I would like to introduce our panelist, Mr. A.P. Saxena, Senior Consultant, Lex 5 years. He is HGM NHB. Welcome, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
Then we have Mr. Sandeep Menon, MD and founder, Vastu Housing Finance. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
Today in this webinar, we would be discussing paradigm shift in HFC's regulatory framework. In August 2019, the government transferred the regulatory control of HFCs from NHB to RBI. Then last year in June 2020, RBI through a press release issued draft guidelines on review of regulatory framework for HFCs for public comment. And on 22nd October 2020, they notified the same. Through this notification, RBI has made changes to the definition of housing finance companies and have given a period of 2 years to fulfill the criteria in phased manner. Further, RBI has raised the net own funds requirement for HFCs. Also, RBI has notified various master directions and provisions applicable to NBFCs, which will now be applicable to HFCs. We shall be discussing these today in our session. Now, in the light of the notification, Mr. Saxena will talk about the key aspects of the regulatory changes brought through this notification. On to you, sir.
Yeah.
So, what are the key aspects of the regulatory changes brought through this notification? You can bring some light on it.
Okay. You see the progress of housing finance in the last 1 decade. There was a very YOY growth was around 17 to 20% or more than that. Number of housing finance companies have also come in a large number. We have given NHB was giving licenses to the newer companies, and the sector was growing very fast with the number as well as in volumes. So we call these changes a paradigm shift because this is going to be a roadmap for the future. This is going to be a path-breaking changes because this is not a small changes, but it's going to create a path for the, because NBFC is a para-banking segment is considered, it is always being discussed in the FSR, financial security risk or the FSDC committees. So there was a thought process going earlier also from the, you can say about 5 to 10 years back. The thought was there has to be some common regulatory framework to bring the HFCs as par with the NBFCs. And there was a harmonization of the process was coming on in the end because there was a large number of NBFCs by way of categories. So RBI has categorized, they harmonized and mixed it into one, clubbed it into one category of NBFC. So some of the very sensitive sectors were there, say the liquidity, risk management, and the systemic risk. So HFCs have been brought under the common framework of NBFC on certain parameters. Like now HFCs will be categorized into systemic and non-systemic deposit-taking HFCs. HFCs have to follow certain parameters on qualifying asset criteria because all the NBFCs, they have to be, major portion of their portfolio has to be in the principal business activity. So now this concept has been brought in for HFCs also. That's the 60-50, that is 60% of their asset should be on housing finance, and out of that 50% should be on the retail home loan side. So then the liquidity framework also. So, if you see the second half of the year 2019 has passed through a lot of liquidity strain, then there was a debate on side of one NBFC and HFCs also. So HFCs have been brought into the common regulatory framework. So these are the changes which have been brought in the new regulatory framework. So idea is to bring the HFCs at par with the NBFCs. To access the market.
ये मतलब सिस्टम बात किया सिस्टम बोली यार मुझे उसके बारे में वो appreciate करके.
I hope
right, sir. So my next question is to Sandeep. Sandeep, what disruption or challenges you see for HFCs during and post this shift?
Well, I guess I think these are very well-aligned and positive changes is the way I would say. And see, disruption, I would say, is a state of mind, because I think these are harmonization and, more importantly, bringing NBFCs and HFCs at par. That there is a minimum capital requirement which is reasonably significant, making sure that the guidelines are clear. And if you're in the housing finance business, then you should be doing housing to a certain level is the way it's put together. So I think a lot of this is well-meaning and forward-looking and in the right direction. So it is how you implement and adapt to the changes is what I would say. So if you are regulatorily aware in a regulated industry and an ecosystem, I think for a company like ours, the way I would say it is that we have grown up in a tightly regulated regime, and banks, NBFCs, HFCs, okay, or if you want to separate the banks and say the NBFCs and the HFCs, it is important that they have a firm set of rules and clarity. And I think that harmonization is something that's going to come along over time. And NHB has done, for example, a great job creating the HFCs, growing the sector, playing the role of a development participant in terms of refinance and a variety of things. But I guess as the ecosystem grew, it was important to harmonize the regulation, and I guess it's in the right direction. So general reaction has been pretty positive. There will be challenges for some small HFCs in terms of meeting regulatory capital and other requirements over a period of time. Same will apply to the smaller NBFCs. But I think the larger ecosystem over a period of time will only benefit from the kind of regulatory framework that's being put together.
So hi, Sangeet, this is Sumesh from Lex Fabios. So Sangeet, thanks for this insight. So, my question to you is, you think the disruption or due to COVID, there were a lot of regulatory challenges and there have been a lot of notifications and change in guidelines in the last 1 year. Have that to some extent or to a large extent, been helpful or, been helpful for the housing finance companies? The change in regulations. Because there's been
the way I would say this is, I think whether it is regulation or government intervention in terms of liquidity support and engagement, and in terms of the moratorium, not just the Indian regulators, but if you look at globally, if you look at Europe, UK, US, all these markets, there's been phenomenal amount of intervention from the overall from the central banks across the world. And I think that's brought in a lot of liquidity, a lot of stability, and real genuine stimulus to this. And the sector is growing and a lot of good people are growing. And for a country like India with say 10-11% mortgage penetration and even retail lending penetration numbers being very low, these are multi-decadal opportunities. So the tightening, the regimentation or whatever you want to call it in some segments, and standardization of a lot of items will allow a lot of companies to grow up in a different framework and to make sure that the challenges around it are well understood and the arbitrage challenges are managed in the right fashion. So the way I would say it is, to adapt to any change takes a bit of time, and it is important to understand the regulation or the regulatory interventions or the central bank activities in the entire ecosystem and how it is impacted. So imagine if you did not have moratorium at this point of time. Imagine if the NPA relaxations wouldn't have happened. There are a lot of genuine customers who have not been able to go out and do their work or run their businesses or been sitting at home. So I think these are unprecedented situations and challenges. This is a 1 in 100 kind of a situation. I don't think we will again see something like this in our lifetimes. So I guess very difficult times, and I would say India's handled this pretty well.
No, thanks for your input.
Right. So the exemptions which were granted to HFCs earlier, will that continue, or what would be the status of that?
In the new regulatory framework, RBI has clearly of liquid assets in these companies, 12.5% of the liquid assets, which has been now recently raised by NHB 13%. So that provision coming under NHB Act 29B. So that is not untouched. So that will remain there. Then the provision under 29C that the HFCs can make a special fund under 29C, and the exemption was in terms of the the funds brought is considered for purpose of 26(18) also under the Income Tax Act. So because the HFCs were enjoying the tax benefit under section 36(18), 36(18). So where 20% of the profit from the long-term funds business that can be considered for the purpose of tax, computation, and they get the relaxation. They don't pay the tax. So that benefit is going to be continued. So these are the two main exemptions which were enjoyed, and they continue to be there unless until the RBI make changes on that.
Right, sir. So, what is this new, qualifying asset criteria which has been brought in the notification?
Yeah. Now, though, as per the, if you look at the memorandum of undertaking of the MOA, the company signing, they have to be, they have said they will be in the housing finance business. So the principal activity of the company is the housing finance. So now the qualifying asset criteria is applicable to all the asset NBFCs. If there is an asset management company, so larger portfolio has to be in asset management. If they are in factoring, so they have to be in factoring. So similarly for HFCs, RBI has said that you have to be remain in the that's the qualifying asset, that is 60 and 50%. So by the 2024 March, companies have to be there in 60% of their total assets in housing finance and 50% in the retail housing. So that's the concept of principal business activity or the qualifying asset.
Right, sir. So, Sandeep, so how, what is the effect on the current portfolio with this change in the definition of HFCs?
So if you've been traditionally doing housing finance business, then I think the change will be minimal. But if you have an HFC and you have other lending in that, I think you'll have to make sure that a certain portion, as Saxena sir mentioned, of the book has to be purely housing. But there is also an opportunity to allow for some level of real estate developers who can be lent for financing for housing and all that stuff, which is counted as housing. So I think all in all, if it is executed well, I think it is a very enabling kind of a thing. There will be transitional challenges, and there could be challenges for some people to attract refinance for a certain period of time within the current guidelines. But I think it will be more transitional, and it won't be something that is going to be difficult for people to continue to do the business. And I guess as the debt market deepens and cost of borrowings come down for the smaller HFCs and other people, and NHB expands its role as a development financier, all these items get addressed. And I have seen over the last few years, and we have been a beneficiary also, that a lot of refinancing support has gone to the smaller companies. So that's something that I think is a positive enabler.
Right. Right. So, will moving HFCs, under the umbrella of RBI make the approachability to regulator easy or challenging for, HFCs? How do you see this change from a approachability angle as a regulator?
So I guess from what I understand, there will be dedicated teams, and NHB continues to do the supervision and management and everything else. So I think from an approachability perspective, NHB has always been approachable, and they have deep insight into most of the companies, and a bunch of extremely good people, 100 plus people, I think 150 people maybe now, have done this over a long period of time. And RBI also has a lot of great skill sets and great domain on this. So I don't think approachability will be a problem. I think
right.
I would say Saxena sir would be very well placed to answer this because he would have seen both sides. But
from the point of view of the access to regulator or supervisor, there is not to be any change because the regulatory aspects, wherever there are changes, it is not of a sudden, it is always through the supervisory processes. So supervisory reports are made available to the RBI, and if any regulatory changes are required, that is in consultation always with NHB and the RBI. So it is not something coming out of blues. So and for the purpose of RBI is having the regulation as well as registration. So if you have any matter relating to registration or change of a company's name or something, registration action 29A, you can always approach to the RBI. Otherwise, also one can approach RBI and NHB as well. So I think there is no problem with that.
That's so, Sandeep. So on this issue, so more from as obviously you're running a large housing finance company. So have you seen any challenges in terms of certain now dealing with two set of regulators, or you think it's been very much the same, or you had any challenges? And
I think it's something that's pretty harmonized, as Saxena Saab said, in the sense that supervision and a lot of activities continue to remain with NHB. And I think they have engaged pretty cohesively together. So far, we have honestly not had any challenges. But having said that, we are small even now. And I think from our perspective, we're pretty engaged with NHB on an ongoing basis. And RBI, I think, is also engaging now. So from an overall perspective, I think it's pretty well laid out in terms of the fact that, and it expands overall scope and harmonization. Like you have an MFI and NBFC, okay, you have a normal NBFC, then you have a HFC NBFC. So I think whatever categorizations are there, you separate rules for ARC. I think that those are things that are very good in the long-term direction. And as Saxena Saab said, if there is a change of ownership or control or anything required, I think those powers now are with RBI. Earlier used to have NHB doing that for housing. Other than that, I think as of now, nothing much significantly in terms of day-to-day operations are changing too much for us to stress about.
Right. So coming to ALM management, what all changes have been brought in that area by the notification?
In case of ALM management, earlier there were statements like structural liquidity, interest rate sensitivities. So the new changes have brought in. They have granularized the time buckets up to 30 days. So they have brought in the final buckets, time buckets of 1 to 7 days, 8 to 14 days, and then 14 to 30 days. So these are the buckets which is to be closely watched, monitored in terms as we look at the liquidity issues. So there is regulatory prudential limits have been prescribed that 10%, 10%, and the 20%. So this is the granularization of the time buckets and putting up the regulatory limits. Beyond that, it is left to the board of the company because the HFCs are working in a different spaces of lending. Some are in affordable, some are in non-affordable, or some. And the business size has also increased. So it is left to the board to lay out the prudential limits, negative gap limits. But for the first three buckets, that is 1 to 7, 8 to 14, and the 15 to 30 days, they have to follow a cumulative negative gap limits of 10, and 20%. So besides that, what they have brought, they have wanted the HFC to have an internal mechanism of control and supervision on risk management and the liquidity. So they are going to bring in certain ratios, liquidity coverage ratio, which is to be maintained. So in terms as it was introduced in NBFC, it is all coming from the Basel. The banks are maintaining. Then it was brought into the NBFC segment, and now it has been brought into the HFC segment that the HFCs are required to maintain liquidity coverage ratio. Liquidity coverage ratio is they have to maintain certain high quality assets. High quality assets means the marketable securities, cash, investments in their bonds. So these are the high quality assets which can be made liquid at any point of time without any extra cost. So what is required is that you have to maintain of your net cash outflow. You have to work out for next 30 days what is going to be your net cash outflow. Up to that value, you have to maintain HQA. And this is to be brought in a very fast manner. It is not something, all of a sudden you have to maintain this much of liquid assets. So it is to be make it in a phased manner by 24 you have to maintain 100% of your net out cash flows, equivalent HQA. So there are few changes which have been brought in. And they have, in terms of the liquid interest rate sensitivity, also they say they have to brought in the same principles, same as it was followed in the structural liquidity ratio. So these are the changes which have been brought in the ALM management.
Right. So now net own fund requirement has increased. So if you can put some light on that area.
Yeah, for the companies, they have now reached the minimum threshold NOF requirement of 20 crores, which was earlier 10 crores. So many of the companies, they have already overreached that value. But if certain companies are there who are not even able to reach to that 20 crores, so that 20 crores requirement is to be made by year 2022, first by 15 crores and then by 20 crores. So, and if they are not able to make it, then they have to apply to the RBI for surrender of their, if they are not, don't have any intention to be in housing finance, they have to apply for surrender of the certificate. So this threshold, it's a minimum requirement because housing is a long-term, it's a capital-intensive business. So you need to have a buffer of capital to run the housing finance business in a sustainable basis. So that's the minimum changes that have been brought in terms of it.
Right. So what are the changes in the liquidity risk management framework?
Yeah, as I have said, first is the changes in terms of the structural liquidity statement. They have brought in bucketing, shorter bucketing, finer. They have brought in the negative gap limits. Then they have said you have to bring the same discipline for the interest rate sensitivity. So the similar ratios to be brought in by the board. So it is all those things have been brought to the, in the ambit of the board. It is a governance issue. It is more a governance issue rather than a regulatory. Regulatory thing is taken care of in the short-term buckets. But the larger part of the business, that is, you have to maintain the gap limits for up to 10 years. So the board is to decide what is the maximum tolerable limits. Tolerance is there for negative gap limits. So then liquidity coverage ratio, then they have to bring out certain ratios in terms of liquidity also. So these are the changes which have been brought in.
So what is prime liquidity coverage ratios?
Prime liquidity ratio, I have told, this is the HQA, that is a high quality assets, which they have to maintain in terms of their net outflow, net cash outflow for the next 30 years. So every company has to work out what is going to be the net outflow for the next 30 days, and then to that level, they have to bring in certain percentage of HQA. And they have defined the HQA also. So say the cash or the government, central government securities, they are a zero risk rate and they can be liquidated any moment of time without any cost. So there is no haircut. But certain HQAs, they have provided a certain level of haircut because you may not be able to liquidate the full value. It may be sold in a discount. So they have provided these certain level of HQAs will be 20% haircut, then 50% haircut. So that's the principles that's going to come in the prime liquidity coverage ratio.
Right, sir. So this move of RBI, aiming to harmonize the regulations from of HFCs and NBFCs, how do you see this move?
Yeah, it's a good move because sector is prone to various kinds of risk. As I said in the beginning, it has always been discussed, in the regulatory purview. In the financial stability report of the RBI or the FSDC committee, which is under the Ministry of Finance, Finance Minister is the chairperson of the FSDC. So the para-banking segment is always under the lens of the risk because they are competing with the scheduled banks. So their level of lending is increasing. They are at par with the scheduled banks activities in terms of lending. So these were the areas which have always been a concern. So idea was to bring the HFCs also because they have to, the initial period of 30 years is over. The market is fully saturated. It's a matured, they are matured players now. there's a huge enthusiasm for the private investments also coming in the housing finance sector. So it is we have attained a certain level of maturity, and now it is to be have to stand on your own and a resilient manner to work. So that's why they have been brought in the common platform of the NBFC. So that's a.
And Rupulba, hi. So Sandeep, also, of course, Mr. Saxena is giving us very interesting insights on the regulatory framework, and also from your perspective, obviously we are still in a COVID time, but the last 1 year, what's been the key challenges that you as a housing finance company have seen, and the steps you've taken to overcome, just from a regulatory perspective or from the working perspective, since obviously we had a long period of moratorium and a lot of these challenges. Sangeet, over to you. Hi, Sangeet, can you hear us?
We look at issues and ability to carry cash. We have continued to carry around 20% of our balance sheet or more in liquid assets at all given points of time. And I think we looked at this as an opportunity to get fitter and really fit for growth, and look at this slowdown or disruption as an opportunity. So we went ahead and added around 20 branches, hired 250 people, and strengthened our processes, simplified a lot of things, and said what more can we do, while at the same time being very cautious, being in touch with our customers, focusing on collections, and assuming that if this is a new normal and this disruption is here to stay, how do you build a business around it? If you walk in today, are setting up the business today, what are the things that you would do differently? So we looked at whether it is people, whether it is processes, whether it is credit risk, whether it is market risk, whether it is liabilities and liquidity, whether it is your interest rates and customer profile, segments, certain markets, scenarios in terms of whether it's going to be a high stress scenario, and what happens if, say, your cost of borrowings go up, you don't get liquidity, your NPAs go up. So we looked at a variety of scenarios, whether it's a medium stress. So I think India has come out pretty well from COVID so far, touch wood. And I think it's been handled very well. So the way I would say is that we are actually better than our pre-COVID levels. Our business has grown. And our NPAs have been pretty much well in control as always. And I think from our perspective, it's been great learning, adapting to a new life. And it's something that's really made sure that we as a team haven't wasted this slowdown and are really fit for growth, and ensured that we implement a lot of things or practices on the risk, market risk, operational risk, credit risk, health and safety guidelines, and a lot of other things which we would not have looked at, like health and safety and all today is much more serious than what it is. So I think a lot of these things have really helped us, and also this has brought us a lot closer to our customers. That's consumers a lot closer, because financial services, when you lend, you get to know the customer. Then if he's paying well, you don't have great connect. But during this time, actually, we went back to all our 20,000+ customers, got to know what's happening with them, what's the situation, what's happening in their business, in their family, what's happening to their children as still going to school. So we got a lot of information and engaged with them, and I think it's really helped us.
Thanks for that. Over to you, Rupal.
Yeah, thank you, Sandeep. Thank you, sir. So now, the participants, if you have any questions for our speakers, you can raise them, or you can put them in the comment section. We can raise them later.
I don't think we have any. Yeah. Everyone can unmute in case anyone has any questions.
If the participants have any question, can unmute now and raise it to the speakers.
I don't think so. Hi, Mr. Saxena. Hi. So what?
Yeah, Mr. Rakesh.
Hi, sir. This is Sumesh. So, Mr. Saxena, what do you, again, from your perspective, you think, what are the key challenges that housing finance companies are facing, and what are the type of issues you've been dealing with for the last in the last few months? What are the key issues you've been more involved with, and what type of challenges you are seeing?
Yeah, what I can say, the HFCs are facing few challenges in terms of the resource facing. Because if you look at the HFC's balance sheet, or if you see the resource profile of the HFCs, they are mainly on the bank finance. Second, they are either raising through bank finance or through debts, debenture or NCDs. So these have been the main source of finance. So after this new framework, it will infuse confidence of the lender, confidence of the investor, because HFCs are now at par, coming at par with the NBFCs. So they are no more a animal of which is more guarded or something like that. They are coming out from those and coming and fighting in the common space. So that will help them if the companies come out very well. I mean, it's a graduated path. RBI has set the path for the next 3 years. So the company is doing well, it will be rated well in the new framework. So this will internally, yes, it is a painful exercise, but they will have a more skill set, they will have a better access to the market, they will be better rated entity, so they can access to the international market, domestic market, and lot of already there are flexibilities were given by in case of scheduled banks lending to NBFCs, there is an extra 5% space has been given to banks for lending to HFCs. So that's the space is already there. If you look at the large exposure of RBI circular on large exposure to NBFCs and the HFCs, so I will say they will be brought in more competitive space. They will be able to raise the resources at more competitive rates. So and it will improve the credit rating. The credit rating agencies also have a that kind of, because now they are meeting at common standards. So that's a good. It's opening up opportunities to the companies. So mainly the market access was the main constraints which the HFCs have been facing after this liquidity strains and the fall of the two major HFC and the NBFC. So market was drying up further. Banks were reluctant to lend to the HFCs and the NBFCs. So now that part will be over, because now they are coming up with a new framework. So,
right, thanks for that. And so over to you, Sandeep. Sandeep, do you think, in your view, with the moratorium on SARFAESI proceedings and not being declaring, or has been having a big impact on your company or in general on the whole housing finance, because obviously recoveries have taken a big hit due to stay on SARFAESI?
So I think SARFAESI should come back to normal. I think pretty soon. I think the worst is over as far as COVID is concerned. My understanding is. Having said that, I think most companies have taken provision, and the support on moratorium and restructuring and all the other things would have done enough to ease the pain. But at the end of the day, if you have bad news on asset quality post a major disruption like COVID, you have to necessarily take some provisions, and you need to make sure that your balance sheet is strong enough and you are able to handle this. So I think a lot of good companies have done that very prudently, and they have handled this well. However, having said that, the challenges may remain for the next 3 to 6 months in terms of how the Supreme Court rules on this whole thing. As the sub judice, I don't think I'd be the right person to comment. However, having said that, most companies have handled this extremely well in the housing finance sector. And as you can see from results of most companies on the housing finance side, I think things have been pretty okay.
Okay. Thanks for that, Sandeep.
Right.
Thanks so much. I have to log off. I have to. Yeah.
Thanks a lot. Thanks, Sandeep. Thanks for the insight and for being a part of the webinar.
Thank you, Saxena.
Thank you, Mr. Sandeep. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Rupal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah. So if we don't have any further questions, we can close the session from the participants. If
And Mr. Saxena, any closing remarks from your side? What are the for some message you would like to give to, since we have a lot of people from the housing fraternity, housing finance companies on the webinar, from your experience and how the last 1 year has been, some closing remarks or input from you. What guidance would you like to give to the housing finance company?
Yeah. So I will again reiterate my word statement as a concluding remarks that the housing finance companies are considered as a specialized housing finance institutions. They are more near to the customer. They know the skills of housing finance. They have learned over the years. They have the professionals of that kind, and the focus is on retail housing loans. So they are well established companies, and they have to focus on now what the changes they have to bring in because of the change in regulatory framework. A lot of finer tuning is required, and the IT support is very important. After the digitization and the payment systems, and though they have to have a very good IT support to support the business environment, then internal monitoring and control. This is also very important because many of the things, whether it is a regulatory framework, corporate governance, or whatever the changes they have been brought in, this all depends upon how do you manage with your business, so internal monitoring and control, the quality of decisions, the committee approach, how the committee is meeting and they are taking the issues. They have to maintain a certain level of profitability also, because they have to run the business. So, and they have to be maintained 60% in housing finance, and out of that 50% in the individual housing loans. So rest of the portfolio, they can choose upon what the quality of the assets is also very important. Underwriting skills, how to access the market, get the competitive rates of resources. So these are certain things which have been, and they are very good. As Mr. Sandeep also said, they are running very well. So I don't think there is, but now they have to, now they say it's a highway. HFCs have come on a highway and they have to run fast. So with a risk is also associated, but you have to safeguard your, that way. So internal systems is very important. Monitoring, management, and the board level decisions, committee decisions. So that's going to take them in a higher paths. So
right, sir. So, for next year, how do you see, after this financial year is over?
It all depends upon the, how the economy is going to turn.
Right.
So, because the sector is not fully open on the supply side and on the demand side, people are still perceived with the COVID risk, and there is a fresh new strain of UK and other things. So, it will take about a year.
Right.
By 2021.
Though RBI has provided a lot of things last year, packages and all. Do you see they are still coming up for the next year also? Are they in the pipeline?
Yeah, I was hearing today PM City saying that there were 4 mini budgets which is brought in the lockdown period. Okay. So, and now in the budget which is coming on 1st of February, it will also come with a lot of fiscal incentives.
Right.
So the government is coming with a lot of support to the health sector and manufacturing, infra is going to be. So, and the real estate also, because real estate is the, engine of the economic growth.
Right.
So everything, it has a, backward and forward linkages industries. So there's a lot of expectations are there. Whatever the government would do, they will do their best. And the regulator and the central bank is also on the very firm, and they have brought down the repo rates, the market rate rates has been brought down. A lot of ample liquidity is also available. The liquidity is not an issue. So only thing is we have to come up.
Right.
So and so it will fear factor will also go away, and I think it will take about 12 months time, 10 to 12 months time that things will come to the normal pre-COVID stage.
Yes, so we all are looking for more packages and more help from from boost from government for the economy. So little off the topic, one of the participants have raised that what is your analysis on implementation of RBI restructuring plan? If you can, for 2 minutes, talk on that.
Yeah, RBI for the COVID stress portfolio, they have brought in the resolution plan. They have been divided into two segments. One is for personal loans and the other one is for other kind of exposures. So that period is already over. Under that, there are a lot of relaxations. They can do whatever way they can do, kind of reschedulement, restructuring, giving a separate loan. The facilities have been brought in. And the loan is still to be continue to be standards. It is not going to be the NPA or the substandard loans. So with the so that 31st December was the period. By that time, they have to invoke this resolution plan, and it has to be implemented in the next 90 days and 180 days period. So that resolution plan is already there, and many of the companies have chosen and they have used this facility.
So how do you see, sir, these restructuring plan as on the ground? Has it helped the companies to actually, the liquidity problem and also, giving a leeway to the borrowers? Has it on the ground? Has this helped the restructuring package?
Yeah, because the measures they have brought in the resolution plan is by extending the moratorium,
right?
Not considering the period of as moratorium as a overdue period. So the loan will continue to be standard. Then entire outstanding can be financed as a separate loan. So that's the kind of facility has been provided. Right. Then you can elongate the repayment period. So everything is possible in the bucket of restructuring. And many of the companies, it was very much desired also, because the people have lost job, they were not running a business. If you have a business loan or something, they are not able to do the business. So that was a very ample at the time, and it has come, and the regulator has taken care of this problem, COVID-related issues,
right?
Restructuring.
Right, so right. So with this, we come to the close. Sumesh, you have any other question for us, sir?
No, sir. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, sorry. We have someone. Yeah. I think someone has a question. Yeah. Sorry. Do we have someone wants to ask any question?
Yeah. Hello.
Yeah.
Am I audible?
Yeah.
Yes.
I have a question. Like considering the cost of funds which the banks have.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm Spandana.
Yeah.
Like considering the lower cost of.
Breaking up.
Your signal is breaking up.
Spandana, can you please repeat your question?
Yeah, I'm saying that like considering the lower cost of funds of banks, like who have the advantage of CASA funds, and who can afford to have like a huge non-earning assets, like who can afford to maintain their liquidity, which is not the case with NBFCs or HFCs. So like if these Basel norms are also like made applicable for NBFCs and HFCs, can they have that competitive advantage against banks? Like this is the major reason like why most of the huge big NBFCs also haven't, though they had the chance of taking banking license, they have stayed away from the same. So like can we expect the huge growth like which these NBFCs or HFCs have witnessed in the past decade? Can we expect the same run even in the coming years?
Yeah, you have raised the question of some sort of parallel between the banks and the NBFCs, because banks are enjoying the CASA funds, the low cost funds, or NBFCs don't have that kind of funding access. But there is a special credit lines are coming up for the NBFCs to support. On the housing side, this is the National Housing Bank who is providing the very low cost refinance facility. So what is needed is that you have to decide what kind of portfolio you are going to build up. So if you are in an affordable segment, you can create an affordable segment and the kind which you can offer to the NHB and get the funds at it, because the government has come out with an affordable housing fund of 10,000 crores. Then before that, the NHB was running with rural housing fund and the urban housing fund. So there's a huge inflow was there from the refinance side. Banks are also offering the loans, which is, they're helping them in build up the priority sector, because what is the loans you are creating is perfect in their books for the purpose of priority sector, so they can finance that portfolio. So refinance window is available to the HFCs and the NBFCs, which can match the difference of the cost. So even NHB refinance is, it is coming at 4%, 5% today's date, affordable housing fund. So, but you have to decide what portfolio you are going to work on that. If you are having a matching portfolio built up, you can always get a line open, credit line opens from NHB and the banks. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks. Thanks.
Right. Any other participants have any questions? Any further questions? All right. So with this, we come toward the end of the session. Thanks everyone for joining today in this webinar. We will shortly bring another webinar or masterclass with Sir on topic which we will shortly be intimating you. Thanks everyone for joining today. Thank you.
Thanks everyone, and thanks Mr. Saxena for all your insight and views. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sumesh.